Hey guys, so this is Matt. I'm one of the judges for the Bulkamancer painting contest. This is going to be just a little bit of a feedback session from my category, which is the traditional category. Now, bear in mind, these are just going to be kind of my initial thoughts. I've had a brief look through some of these already to kind of just make sure that we got things in the right category. So I'm going to kind of deep dive now into all the entries in my categories. So I'll go through what I like, what I think could be improved on each entry in the category. So I guess without further ado, let's dive into the first one, shall we? My desktop. So open these all up. And then don't ask me again. Okay, cool. So we have what's her face from Baldur's Gate 3. I can't for the life of me remember. You think I would have played the actual game. But anyway, so I'm having a look here and first things first, great color palette. I really, really appreciate the vibrancy of it. I can't actually remember. I know the character in the game, I know definitely, I think it was Silver, but I'm not gonna personally, I don't care for in terms of staying faithful or true necessarily to the armor color scheme because, like I said, here is really really nice. It's really good. And I'm just gonna have a quick zoom in kind of things. Is so you've got really nice highlights. On the face as well. I know you've done the scarring and the kind of the crackling of the face, and there's some really nice lining here, which is really really good. So again, my initial thought from just this one is really good, very well painted. You've done yourself very proud here, and there's clear elements. I've got some good contrast in terms of the highlights and the shadows here from this. So let's have a look at some of the other ones. Like I can see you've done as well some good, excuse me, some painting work on the wings. So again here, I guess like my personally now here, what I'd say is this is just a photography thing. You're a little bit blown out in terms of the exposure, so it looks the white probably is just a little bit too bright, but that's just photography, so I won't go too harshly on that. Again, I'm loving just the color palette, and how well you've basically done the purple in the shadows on the wing. Very nice touch. um yeah, it's really nice. I see that you've done the individual painstakingly, which I know I've done myself when having to paint wings, of the individual lines on the feathers. So that's very, very well done. Again, if we zoom in, it's just the front again. It harmonizes very well. It's really, really nice. Um, in terms of again the color scheme, it's really, really good. Just going a little bit deeper. So yeah, I mean, see, is there one of the sword? Yeah, bigger, closer look. I'll get the sword in the base again. Sword. Done yourself pretty good on the sword. Again, there's a nice balance. And whoops, going in the wrong way. And then I just want to see if I can get the base. So there we have the base. Okay. And yeah, so what I really like, and like what I said, is there's really good contrasts in terms of bits and pieces. Now one thing I will prefix, as I said, I'm not gonna judge people harshly on the base. Because case in point, I do like bits and pieces like this. It's just dry bush, gives it a bit of texture. I know, and it was funny. It's like the first thing I'm drawn to. And I'm like, yeah, just a little bit less on terms of the highlights of that. But again, that's not what I really want to judge on. Is more for the sword. Here is probably a good example of what I find, certainly in terms of the golden armor that I'll have a look back in a second, lanking is definitely on the sword. We're getting really good extremes of your contrast here. Really, really dark shadow down here, great. And we've got really, really bright tip. I'd like to probably see that extended in certain areas. Kind of here, you've got like a huge amount of midtone. I would bring this bit of grey down a lot more, and in a similar fashion, pull this up a lot more. And then what you can do with closer down here, you can get a lot more white. You can have some reflections of white to really make a pop, and kind of in a similar way up here, you can have more white. And see how dark you have it here with how close it is to this bit of the sword. But this bit up here is probably on your mid-tone color down here. So I'd go as extreme there just for a case of consistency. And you can kind of feel that as well with across kind of the blues and yours. Like you have really, 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 really good shadows, and then you have some nice highlights. But I'd like to see it up pushed a little bit more to really deepen those shadows. Because in and around here, closer to where this trim is, you could definitely push like this level of close to kind of black for bits and pieces of that just to make it stand out a little bit more. And especially when it comes to the gold is really, really nice. But what I think you need to do is, if we see again, you see how dark you have it in here? I'd want it pushed for the extremes in terms of your contrast, especially at the bordering edges. I'd really want to see a lot more of these darker, way darker tones, pushed just to the extremes, just for a little bit more of a pop. Because when I zoom in on it, you can kind of see it there, but you've gone kind of possibly a little too much on the midtones, uh, kind of broadly speaking overall. But again, I think, zoom out, we go back to kind of images like this. It sells a really, really nice. It's just, for me, if I was going to say things we could look at on this, is that just pushing that kind of contrast in terms of your gold NMM, because it works in certain areas. Like it's nice there. Again, I just want a little bit more shadows for certain places, and then what you can also do is a lot more whites in terms of the extremes on the armors for like bits and pieces like that, sharp edges, sharp points. You can push it up that little bit more, because then what'll happen is you'll bring out a lot more depth in terms of how your NMM looks. But fantastically solid job. um and then kind of this uh tabard, I guess, the thing in terms of the color and a little bit of scratchy, I get it. Again, I kind of feel like towards where these little star asterisk symbols are, I'd probably want to see like a little bit more of like this level of dirt and grime in and around these, just to sell a little bit more. But yeah, overall, absolutely fantastic. I think possibly you could blend the wings, like the feathers, just a little bit. It's not so much that, I would give more precedence to putting, again, like I've said, a lot more, I'd say, like closer to white in terms of how sparkly. But if you're not going for a sparkly finish, then that's fine. But just for me personally, it's like I wanted to see a little bit more bump on the much sharper edges. But yeah, overall, fantastic job on this one. Okay. Now, this one, cell shaded, very clean. Straight off the bat, this is very well done. Incredible attention to details, because getting cell shading like this is not easy. It's really, really not. And I can see this took an incredible amount of time. In terms of what I'm looking at a glance on this front angle would be, and again, I'm not judging the base, but you can see there are tiny little nitpicks. It's like if we were going for perfection here, if I zoom right in here, whoops, let me zoom out. Like I'm getting down to pixels here. That's how nitpicky I'm being. Like, I'd sharpen that up, but again, that's the base. So I'm not gonna go harshly on this. Whereas it's just wonderfully done. You've done incredibly well with the anime front of the hair, and the eyes are gorgeous. The three-tone approach I find works really well. I love that you've put kind of purple into the shadows against the white. I think it pops really, really well. It's a really good simple way, because I know for a lot of the stuff when we're doing cell shading, people can tend to use just neutral grays, but the actual fact that you've kind of put like pinks and lilacs in as your shade colors and like a little bit of blue there is just beautiful. And then again, if we look kind of at the back, the consistency across this is just really, really, really well done. You've really nailed it and really done well. Um, yeah, it's gonna be hard to kind of nitpick this. This is like it's incredibly cleanly done. Like the line work is just fantastic. Maybe if again, if I'm nitpicking here, is this seems to be a little bit kind of, you know, not as good, but that is, I'm almost certain that's purely the angle. Because yeah, if I go over here, possibly these lines here, smooth it out a tiny little bit. But if that is my nitpick, honestly, I can live with that. It's really nice that you've done kind of the bounce reflection here, especially in cell shading. It's very, very hard to do. The black is just beautiful, and it's very, very clean. It is very, very well done. I like how you've imitated the shine of the boots by using really, really harsh and quite bright white, because it's very difficult to get that good looking at, all these angles. Like, you do sell the shine of the boots incredibly well, but then you get the satin of the black jacket really well because you've not used white at all. And like even the gem with the two three tones, it's really, really, really well done. This is a fantastic piece. I just want to zoom in on the skin, and again, the skin is really, really, really well done. Um, Possibly this is the only place I would critique it on, is outside of here. It feels like, um, in contrast to the rest of the piece, like if we're looking at the nose, it's beautifully subtle, but I guess if you want kind of a bit of consistency, I'd expect kind of this level of cell shading across the face. But once again, what I'm saying is I'm nitpicking here. So if I go back kind of to the face and stuff, it's consistent across the ears. Yeah, I would just, in terms of consistency, I'd want this a lot harsher, a lot more similar to this, like a stark contrast in terms of the border divides on this. You can kind of see it here, but it's very, very subtle on the face. Now, obviously, if that was a choice, that's fine. But I feel like just that would be my one nitpick on this is it's so consistently cell shaded across everything up until the neck, and then it feels like it's quite subtle for an anime face and the cell shading kind of job that you're doing here. But again, this is really, 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 really well done. Fantastic job on this. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Okay, the ghoul from Fallout. Now, this I think is probably the best starting image on this, and it's just very, very nice. I think it's really well accomplished. It's very well done. The worn leather is very nice, and I do like the hand painted stripes. I think it works really, really well. Overall, I'm getting a really nice, just it as a collective piece. I think it's very well done. Now it's, there's kind of a limited bit of a palette here, which is, it works in its favor, and it's very, very nice. And I want to check out some other items because dog meat Not sure if he's in the show. Well, no, I'm not sure if it's Dogmeat in the show, but you know, these very nice. It's kind of elements of the base. Um, Again, like I said, I really like the tones of the jacket. I think it's quite nice. Um, the skin tone really, really, really does it well. Whoops! Once again, zooming in far too much. Like the handles on it, you've done really nice to make it quite a dulled metallic look on the gun. For the metallic bits anyway, which is very, very good. It's very well done. Um, yeah, I think for this, what I specifically would want more, if we kind of go into kind of the depth of it, is everything's kind of quite sitting in and around this brown tone. And you can see on the creases here, you have your extremes of your darkness. And then on this crease, you have your extreme of your highlight. I want to see more of this spread further on the creases of the jacket. Like this should probably continue up a little bit more. And then you should see that tone again up on here. And especially around kind of these edges. I really want to see that because what it'll do is the it'll pop the jacket out a little bit more and give a little bit more depth. Because if we zoom back out here, it's good. I just want more of it to really accentuate the jacket and the piece as a whole. Again, it's nice. Zoom right in here. You see that you have it here, but it's not as prominent as here, even though this is a raised surface. And down in along these lines. So I just want a little bit more, and that level of darkness, I want it in the extremes again, which it'll just pop it out to that next level. Now, again, you've kind of chosen very smart, a different set of browns and leathers for this, but kind of in a similar fashion on the stitching. I think those need to be highlighted just with a little hint of your brush, just tiny little dots of this level of brown on kind of the more raised ones, just for a little bit of variety, and it makes that huge amount of difference where it'll pop just that little bit more. Now on the face, I think the face is very well done. Just a little bit of cleanliness there goes a huge way because I'm not seeing it on that side, and kind of in a similar, it seems like you kind of highlighted this section but not highlighted this section. So it's just a nitpick, but I just a little bit of a touch up goes a huge long way. The dead skin, the lots of reds and pinks in it work really, really well. I like how you've cleverly used a little bit of a gloss varnish there just to make the eyes a little bit more watery. A little bit of consistency on the dots. You have a dot here, and it's a little bit lower on this one. You probably want to bring it up just a tiny little smidge there. Then the hat, it's great. Another tone kind of variation, but on this rope, a little bit of dry brushing even would just bring this out. And then, yeah, you've done really well to highlight the lines. I probably would have given just a little bit more, one more pass of a glaze and then airbrush again, just to make the lines a little bit more readable. The dirt on the shoes, that's totally fine. A little bit more just to bring out these raised surfaces. But yeah, El Doggo, inverted commas, dog meat, possibly, maybe. Dog meat looks really good. Again, clever use of varnishes just to make it a little bit wet. Feels like he's a little bit dirty. I would have maybe just done with my brushes some glazes or just some lines to give the fur texture just a little bit more readability. It does seem a little bit plain, so I'd want to bring out these lines by just brushing in a little bit more, just some, some yellow, a little bit of watered down diluted glaze of maybe some ice yellows, and then again maybe some neutral grays just to push these bits and pieces, because you can kind of see it on the nose, and all I want to do is extenuate or extend it, sorry, out again, just to give him a little bit more of a bump. But yeah, overall, let me just have a look at those front legs. Yeah, it's really, really nice. It's a really, really accomplished piece, and just the color palette works really, really well. I just want a little bit more. I want that level of brightness in those creases and that level of darkness across those shadows, just a little bit more around the model, and it would bump you up substantially. But again, facial tones really, really good. The hat really, really good. Fantastic job. Really, really nice. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Okay, I believe this is Fran from Final Fantasy. Terrible with the character names, but it's not what we're here for. We're here to judge your paint job. We're here to have a look at this. Okay. Nice. Photos are ever so slightly a little bit blurry and a little bit overexposed. So it's going to be a little bit of annoyance. It's an annoyance for me, but I really like the tones overall. Done yourself really good in terms of the line work. It's very, very nice. You've done really well to sell the idea of very, very shiny metal. The skin tones, I'll have a look around the model a little bit more. Very nicely done. And again, the hair, like a psychopath, you've done white on white. So it's a little bit hard to see the kind of the separation between the model and stuff. So just a photography tip for going forward, what I would suggest is if you have black and white on your model, gray background, and it just makes it easy for anyone to pick out bits and pieces in terms of the details and stuff. I feel like I have to tilt my hat on this one, but yeah, more of these skin tones. So yeah, so there's good line work. I think again it's an accomplished piece. Bits and pieces, if I'm going to go through it in terms of, I'd like to see it a little bit more blended, like things like this where it's so harsh, just a little bit more blended, kind of in a similar to your blacks, a little bit of a glaze of kind of a 50-50 mix of this gray, sorry, and this black. Just smooth it over just at the edges. Goes a huge and a long way. Once again, I'm zooming in, not out. In terms of like the thing that has stuck out to me, it's like, see if I can't get a better angle of the hand. Is kind of this what stood to me the most is there's quite a lot of purple and reds over here, whereas like if you kind of stare at your hand and your arms, you'll see they're quite subtle. You kind of get a uniformity across the skin. So what I'd want is I'd want a little bit less redness in the extremes, kind of in and around here, and more of kind of like a blended neutral look, because you have it kind of right there, but it wouldn't be as purple. And what I'd want is this level of kind of skin tone in a similar way to her face being that bright and that white. We want to see that on the raised kind of sections, like in and around her chest as well, is where you'd see that. So from this angle again, zoom out here. Oops. Like I'm a little bit kind of confused, I guess, with the yellowness down here, and I understand your redness in terms of like the deep kind of parts, the recesses of the anatomy, but I would want that probably a little bit a little bit subtler, and you can blend that a little bit more, because what you have it here on the bootay is it's really, really nice and it's well done here and kind of here as well. So I just want to see that more uniformly across. Now, if this is supposed to be kind of she's in sunlight, you do want to add that all the way across, not just down here, not just kind of there in like sections. If she's supposed to be in sunlight, what you deliberately want is you want that all the way down across here. It should extend all the way from all over her face to these sections where just this side of her and down straight down the leg, if that was your design choice. Um, close up of the face. Again, it's kind of a little bit blurry, so it's hard to see. But for all intents and purposes, you've put the shadows. Okay, I can see you've put shadows on it, which is really, really nice and well done. But kind of again, if I'm going to look at it this way, is it shouldn't be that bright for that yellow, and I am kind of confused as like to why that yellow is there. I can see like you consistently put it across kind of um the character, so I'm guessing it is a design choice, but just the brightness I wouldn't have it that much. And kind of in a similar way to if this is supposed to be that kind of, the black metallic armor. Again, I decreased kind of the limits on this neutral grey, and I'd push and just have a tiny little dot of white. Tiny little dot of white to accent them. Probably again, prime example will be you have it really, really nice down here, but this probably just needs to be smoothed out just a little bit, because it kind of makes it look a little bit cartoonish. Whereas over here, again, kind of you've got the idea right, you have your planes of light quite right. It's just you need to extend these white dot highlights all the way across and in a similar fashion kind of down along here. But yeah, very, very good. Let's look at the bow. The bow and the arrow. Again, kind of what I want to see more is more extremes in terms of kind of dot highlights. I want kind of like if it's all supposed to glisten, you want to be selective. Like you'd want a glistening kind of dot more accentuated there. I can see kind of a tiny dot. We want more of that kind of consistently across the board. And I think the rough texture of the red works quite well. And obviously the poor girl is supposed to have a bowstring there, but can't fault you for that. So yeah, very, very nice. I love the interpretation of it. I just would like what I would like is if this was on kind of a grey background, I'd have a really good idea of how it like comes together in terms of the black and the whites. And actually, I know I've only noticed it now, but you've done the sheer kind of cloth fabric on this, which is really hard to do. So you've done yourself really, really good, because it does come across quite well, but you probably want to just smooth out that just a little bit there. So yeah, let's move on to the next one. Okay, so we have another cell shaded one here. Do we have a good zoom out of it here? Okay, so they're a little bit blurry, and it might be from probably just from the Discord. Well, this is very nicely done. So this was kind of the thing that I said earlier, in that you've probably done from a consistency point where you've done the contrast borders in the cell shading on the face the way I would have liked it, which is nice. The thing that I'm finding on this one versus the one from Freeran is I think your black lining needs to just be a little bit thinner. I think with how with how thick it is across the board, I think it's actually pulling it down just a little bit. In certain areas, like it just feels like that could be a little bit, tiny bit smaller, because it works incredibly well across the bow. It's like, again, incredible effort to have done it across an entire model like this. And then again, if I'm nitpicking, it's just there's tiny little bits of dirt, kind of, a little bit overlap like there, and kind of just a slight little bit. Do I have his face front on? Yeah, so you can kind of see here in that this bit all here should all be brown and not skin tone, because that's like the rest of the hair. That's the model. Like in down there, I'd want that to be the hair color. I'd want this extending towards the hair. Possibly you want to extend, you want this level of white extended across. You probably want to add a little bit of this brown into the extremes, because you've kind of done it there, and then it's neglected here, and then kind of here again. If we're going to nitpick the shapes, you can kind of see it there, little bits there. So in the extremes on this, there should be another line of just this level of shade, if the cape is supposed to be the same color as this, that is, because the border separations are really, really nice. Again, this should be sanded down. Absolutely needs to be sanded down. No excuses for having this level of dirt on it, especially for a competition piece, because if this goes to other places, the judges will absolutely crucify you in terms of that. It's like, cleanliness is key. And then, why did you zoom in so much to basically the tiniest little pixels? Yeah, so again, it's just like, just tidy up these little bits and pieces. Like that to me looks like paint rubbed off. You can always come back, mask it over, mask that over, spray back for a consistent yellow. And if it's supposed to be a pure white, it should be a pure, just the color. Again, lovely done. Zoom in on the boots. I think the boots could do with much stronger coloration. Again, harping back to the Fran, I think you should have this level of greys across the folds on the boots, just to sell that idea of the folds a little bit better. But yeah, the bow, very, very clean. Difficult to do all that line work, so kudos to that. For bits and pieces like this, I'd like to see them blacklined again in a similar fashion to the rest of these, because it sells the idea a lot more. If you're going to do kind of shapes and bits and pieces like this, they all kind of should have really hot, really clean borders. Because you can see over here, the yellow's not quite there, and it's the green's overlapping just ever so slightly there. So I'd want to see those cleaned. And that look there. Again, the base, you've sold the idea of the shadow incredibly well, so hats off there. And then I think the only other thing is, the more I look at the face, the more I'm realizing is this eye needs to be extended back out here, because you have such a tiny gap here. So it's got the poor cross-eyed, which is, it's unfortunate, but it's kind of the thing of, I want that extended because you have so little white on that side of the eye. And again, I can't really fault the bow in terms of cell shading, and as I said, is you want to extend the hair all down. We want to get rid of all that, because it does look like you kind of forgot there and there to extend and do it. But another fantastic cell shaded job. So let's move on to the next one. let's have a look here. I had a good one there a second ago. Okay. Again, this is Discord, so it's going to be a little bit blurry. But this, in terms of tonal variation, is a lot nicer. And this is what I said is I want the extension of my highlights down across these. So it looks pretty decent. I do like this touch again. It adds to it. I won't say anything necessarily about the backdrop because, again, I'm not judging it on the base. This is more what I want to judge it on. Again, it's going to be quite difficult with how blurry these are coming back, but that's just due to the file compression. It was really, really nice. The arm is quite drawing, but I know with his brimmed hat, that should be the idea. So I want a contrast bump, and I want to be brought up to his face, not necessarily down to here where the pistol and the guns are. Like this is a much better angle again, but all the focus is going to be on here. So I'd bring the colors up on the face a little bit more, just so it brings it up, because again, this arm is really, really, really well done, and it matches kind of consistency across the letters on the jacket. Again, I'd go deeper in the shadows a tiny little bit. It does look really, really nice. Okay, here's an actually good angle, and you've got a little bit of OSL in the glow there from the sunshine, which you saw again with the backdrop. So yourself pretty well. The NMM on the belt buckle, nicely done. You dog meat. Can I get a decent angle on him? Dog meat again. I think you suffer the same kind of problem where I'd probably want a little more brushwork put onto it in terms of just glazes down to sell me that effect of the fur. The trousers, very, very nice. Very nicely done. You probably want to bump these folds up just a little bit more. Just a tiny little bit more. A little more consistency on the leather scratching here would go a long way. Again, kind of similar feedback to what I had done with the previous school. But I think overall, yeah, it's nice. It's kind of a better angle I can get from the face. You've nicely sold the kind of what am I looking for? Like the sunset sundown on this. So really good job there. Nice little consistency. And here's possibly a good look at the face. Again, it is very hard to judge the face, which is annoying because I would like to have seen this zoomed in to see how much this affects in terms of the tonal variations and bits and pieces. But I'm probably after this session going to go in and have a look at them on Discord. I will probably on this is probably going to be smooth it out just a tiny little bit. There's a lot of white, which means it's very, very bright. And if the rest of him's in the sunset, what you can do is just glaze in some oranges, glaze in some yellows, because if that's supposed to be this reflective with how white it is, I want to see it. I want to see the oranges, the yellows to make it look like it's glowing in the sunshine or the sunset, even just for consistency. Then, yeah, decent base. There we go. Much better idea there. Again, it's quite hard to tell. He looks so sad, but it does the nice depth of shadows in here. Really nice, but I'm going to come back to this. And then again, nice angle there. Nice little bit of consistency. But overall, very, very solid. This is a very solid. The goals have been surprisingly really, really good. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Delicious in Dungeon. Um, so my first thing is what I'd say is I'd sand down that face, just get a little bit smooth. Same with these little support marks. They'll crucify it as I will. It's very clean. It's very, very clean. Outside of the lack of it being clean for lack of taking away support marks. Um, nice glowing effect, but I'm not going to judge you on that. Very clean, very smooth. Again, the support marks are letting you down here because it's a sign of uncleanliness. The base is quite good. You've got very consistent in terms of your base coats. So my overall impression from this is, well, it's very, very nice. It's a lot of base coats. This is the first one I've seen that's just, this to me feels like it's base coats and then you're just letting the model do the work. So what I want from you outside of removing all these kind of support marks is take a lighter color. Like this just itself, I know I'm zoomed in here, this is to me feels like this is just the bounce from your lighting. Take a lighter color. Like you could on your blues take this dark blue and this light blue, combine them together, spray some highlights here, get a brush, very fine lines here. Just want a little bit of color depth to make it look like it's not just um, the standard colors, because again it's very, very, whoops, it's clean, it's very, very clean. It just feels like outside of the lighting it lacks a little bit of depth that I want. I feel like it's just, the light again. Um, Again, difficult to kind of see whether or not how the face is looking, based on just the images being imported here. Because it looks like you have the eyes quite nice. They might be a little bit crooked. But even say the stitching here is, I'd want to see them like this color. You'd want to just paint this color over these. The white is very, very clean, but you can go quite darker into the depths of these. And on the staff as well, I just feel like just a wash over this to really, really deepen it, and then maybe even some dry brushing of some really light browns and kind of maybe some dark skin tones just to separate, accent this out, and just bring it's just overall the thing that I want from this is just a little bit more depth. You have the cleanliness down, which is great. Now let's just push it a bit further and add some depth. Even like these lines, these creases, just get your brush, just pin wash down some black lines here just for some separation. But yeah, clean our lovely girl up a little bit. Let's add some depth. We've got ourselves some really, really, really nice modeling. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Okay, another Baldur's Gate 3-1, and we start off with some feet. Now, yeah, now I know for a fact that this is just the armor, so the skin looks very, very nice with the marks from the thing. Character? I vaguely know this character again, so very, very nice in terms of painstaking detail to do that. So again, this is probably going to be the best example of the face. So true metallics again. It's very nice, very clean once again. I would on this push it and edge highlight with some silver just to really bring it out, because you can see how bright it is there. You want to do that consistently just across and like just all there. Um, I'll have to have a look on the character because I want to see how thick those lines are, because it could come down to a case of subtlety. In terms of the actual red armor, though, as a man who loves red, I want to see a lot deeper purples in here. This is a lot of just a very clean red. you can see kind of bits and pieces of it there. I want that pushed a lot more. I want those shadows a lot darker because it gives it a much truer red. In terms of the highlights even as well, you can kind of see it there that you've kind of put a little bit of white even. Maybe even pink on these. Yeah, I think it's pink fuchsia. I want that across the board on these as well. If you want to really sell the idea it's like it's lovely red armor, I need to see that there and across all those divots and rivets. You really want to put the time into it, but you also want to get this depth. And now I know this is the shadow from the photo, but you want that level of depth consistently across your reds. Because let's have a look here. Because yeah, I can see it's like it's shifting with the color. It's shifting with the angle of the photo. So what that to me tells me is that like this is a really nice base coat red, but I want it deeper. Start with a purple, go really dark, and then push up to these pinks for your highlights that you're just gonna do all these lines for. Um, the hair, very nicely done. I would put more of these lines across all of these individual strands. As painstaking as it is, you have the gradient right. I just need a little bit more time put in doing it across the individual strands of hair to really push it to the next level. And in a similar fashion with your silvers, you can even, I know you've used true metallics, put a little bit of white in them. Or alternatively, wash them back down to deepen the shadows so your silvers just pop that little bit more. But yeah, it's really well done. It's gorgeous. Let's have a look at the eyes. Again, I'm going to have to look back on the character just to see in terms of this. I'm not necessarily 100% sold on it. I know you've done the painstaking detail of this, and I'm not going to mark you down based on the judgment of the accuracy to the lines. It just, I'm wondering, in certain sections it's a little heavy handed, and in others it's a little less. But I'm wondering whether that's down to like the actual character or not. So I will reserve judgment there. But yes, it's really nice in terms of the actual skin tones themselves. You've got the highlights nice, and they're consistent across. Possibly maybe a little bit bump, just a little bit brighter on these forward facing bits. So, you know, you've got brightness there. You can possibly extend it out a little bit more, make it a little bit bigger, and make it even more so on the chin, and then less so down here. Kind of this level of darkness you probably want just to push maybe up to in and around there. And then again, yeah, like I've said on the hair, is you really nice metallics. You can probably just push them down and up a little bit more, just pop it just a little bit more. And then the hair, like you can see your highlight there. You definitely want to extend this painstakingly across the strands if you really do want to just bump it to the next. And then feet nice, but once again, in terms of the armor, I want that pink lining on all those raised edges just to really sell it. But yeah, the first of possibly a few oranges. Very well done. Let's move on to the next one. And our third cell shaded one. That guy from Gurren Lagann. Okay. Once again, nice use of colors. This is a little bit more subtle versus the other two, which is nice. It's good kind of to see it. Consistency across the board. Very well done. Cape seems to be possibly slightly gradiented, which is nice. Let's have a look on the backside. Row, fight the power. This white could definitely, I think you could have masked it and then gone over it just to make it clean, because you can get away with it being less on the arm bandages, but not so much this back here. And again, in a similar fashion to our last one, you're gonna have to do it. You're gonna have to go in with your brush, clean these little bits and pieces up. It makes it so much smoother. And again, there's a little bit of splattering, a little bit of dirt there. These are just tiny little nitpicks, niggles on it that I want. Um, on these ropes, I would have made a decision and choice to either do every individual one or just see. I don't know now. Hmm. It's just it's well, you can see that like this isn't. It's kind of not working for me doing like some of them to accent them. I'd rather you've just committed to all of them or none of them at all. But then if you'd done none of them at all, it probably wouldn't look as good or nice. So I think probably should have put the time in and kind of just rounded them all. But I can see what you're going for in terms of like the anime style of doing that. I would probably blackline the glasses and the borders on these. Again, it accents them and it really makes it step out because you have it on the hair in a good way. And I'd want kind of more, I'd want similar black lines on this, the hilt of the weapon, the individual wraps on the sword. But I do really like the different approach that you've done with much softer shaded lines versus our other two. And again, now I know it's difficult on darker colors, but you want black on the underside and a really strong highlight on the top half for your creases. You can kind of see that it does. This is how it makes sense on the belt as well. But that's basically what you want on your pants as well. Looking at them toesies. Them toesies are done quite well. Again, I'd go one step brighter on the highlights for the sandal. It'll make it pop that little bit more. But beautiful, beautifully done. Very, very nice. Is there anything more? Again, like I said, you have this really, really nice and really well done in terms of breaking up the shape and doing the lighting and doing the cell shading. A little bit of a paint chip there. Gotta clean that. Gotta clean that. But I want to see this level of line consistency kind of across the board in a similar to what we saw with Bren from Free Ren. The sorcery girl from Free Ren. But beautiful. Beautifully, beautifully done. Right, on to the next one. Okay, and for once I have no idea who this character is. So I guess it's kind of good that I'm going in blind. Okay, wonderful color palette. Really, really nice. Nice patterning. Pattern. A nice pattern on the dress. That's all I'll go for. Patterning? Patterning? It's not a word. Really, you've done nice in terms of highlighting all your creases, all your edges, and the subtle gradient on that is nice. Lighting on the photos is cheating for you just a tiny little bit. And in terms of the white hair, that kind of off-white grey, really, really nice. Your NMM gold, once again, very, very nice. Nice subtlety in terms of the eyes. Better view of the face. There we go. Okay, again, a little bit of dirt. We just want to clean that up. The eyes, very lovely. Nice tonality on the face, I think, just for this cheek. Just glaze that a little bit more. Just make it a little bit smoother. It's nice over here, but I think in this should have like this level of darkness should probably extend down a little bit more because you've got the accent here. See this would be a little bit cleaner if I look at it from this angle over here. You can kind of see it here as like just smooth it out just a tiny little bit. That's what I do for, because you have it really, really nice across the skin. It's really, really, really well done. Clean up your support marks. Clean them up. What I'm across the board on this one, what I'd like to see more is just like a little bit more time put into glazing to getting these just a little bit smoother. If this was a little bit smoother, it would pop so much more. Now again, the pattern on the dress is really good, but you can bump up the contrast on these bits again. Think of it as a full shape, a full just flat shape. You want that color gradient to move and go up and down as it goes across, like possibly not as green here and maybe some yellow highlights on here. The bronze non-metallic metal is really, really, really well done. This is really good. You can smooth it ever so slightly, but I think this works really, really, really good. In terms of the sword, this is where now I'd go back and kind of view the first sword, but this is where what I would want is these are quite harsh highlights. Very, very harsh. I'd want them smoothed out a little bit more. Whoops. Apologies. Because even if we are going in this depth, is you can have these, but I want like this level of blackness should really extend down. It should really, if this is how bright this is, there should be a contrast of darkness over here. If you have one here, you want a darkness over here. Because of how the blade is facing down, you'd want this really, really dark. We want this underside of the blade to be really, really, really dark. And possibly we don't want, highlights down to here. The edge of this blade, because it's an edge, should be, a singular line of possibly white to neutral grey across this to sell the idea that it's shiny, because I know when I just glanced at there, if I go on the back side of it, the back side you see is much better. It's like this is the level of darkness we want, and you want to just smooth out these highlights. It's always handy to have a reference image of what you want, because you can do it this way, and there's nothing wrong with saying that you have these four reflections, but it's going to be very difficult to sell the idea. What I want is where this boundary is here, you just want like this mid-tone, this little grey across this the whole way, and then a speckle of white where all these four intersections happen. And in that way, you get yourself a much, much more realistic looking non-metallic silver. The hair, it's hard to judge white hair again. It's difficult. I commend you for doing it. It looks nice. I possibly, if you're going to go that white, you need to push it up a little bit more on your highest highlights, and then glaze in much lighter tones. Even though you've gone very, very dark for the shadows, I'd go much lighter. It feels like it's a little bit too dark, but not the end of the world here in terms of that, because yeah, darkness over here being black white thing just works really well, and worked well over here. But yeah, white hair is always going to be a nightmare to do. So yeah, very well done here. I'd possibly bring that down. It just feels like for the angle that it's at, it wouldn't be that bright. It would be like a more neutral purple across the board. And then yeah, cleaning up these dirts. Gotta put the time in. Gotta get rid of all that dirt. And yeah, kind of like what I was saying is like I'd follow a line down here, so you'd have some yellow, just really, really bright yellow, following this gradient down here, because you've done it well here where you've got the cut off shadow, but I'd want that a little bit greener just to sell the effect a little bit better. And then again, the boots are quite nice. I like the stipple glazing. I think it works really, really well. Possibly smooth that out a little bit, but beautifully done. Another absolutely fantastic piece. So let's move on to the next one. So another ghoul. I feel like they're printed in clear glass. Very, very nice. Let's see, do I have... So this is a good angle. So now what's lacking... So this is nice, you've done it in metallic paints as well. It's very accomplished. I can see that you've put the highlights in. Again, kind of in similar fashion. You've taken some of the good bits and highlighted this, but then some of these are quite dull, and like that's what I need and that's what I want. It's like it feels like these are kind of dirt spots, which is nice, but you can stipple that out and put that through a lot more of the jacket and a lot more on both sides of the bottom if that's what you want to go for, because then it'll sell the effect a lot more. The face to me feels a little flat, but I have a better angle here. Yeah, it's nice and it works, but what I want is I want more paleness around the separation of the eyes, the nose hole. You can go like some light skin tone. So like what we have here in terms of, I know this is just a shadow from the camera, but this pale level of pink, you can just edge highlight the nose on that because it'll really bring it out. It's really striking eyes, which is great. And then kind of again in a similar fashion is the lips can come up a little bit more and the chin can come up a little bit more. Just feels like it just needs a little bit of a contrast bump, just up a little bit more. I like the metallic filigree, I guess, on the shirt. It's the first time I've seen it. I've noticed everyone else has just done kind of a similar kind of simple highlight to it. I feel like these are FDM lines. I'll have to zoom out. But yeah, you can just add some white to your silver. And then just like here, top of this, top of the bullets, it'll just bounce the color a little bit more because this just feels a little bit flat to me. So I'd want to see it bumped up a little bit more. And then kind of top down. Yeah, I just feel like it needs a little bit of a contrast bump. And then you have the same problem that I said with everyone else's dog, is that you just need to just glaze in with your brush, just some flick lines of contrast for dog meat. But yeah, very nice. Possibly cut down the lines on the pants. They seem a little bit thick, and I probably want a little bit of a gradient on them. But other than that, another interesting ghoul. Generic fox lady. Apology. I think this is the Azure Lane one. Please don't kill me for getting the character wrong because I don't know. It's either Azure Lane or Genshin Impact. Again, this has been screwed by Discord. So very clean. Once again, I would, so the thing with fur on this is, I can see kind of what you've done is, it's a lot of dry brushing. Dry brushing is going to be quite harsh for doing this kind of fur texture. So basically what I suggest is what you do from this is you can airbrush a gradient on, and then what you do is get like pure whites and you just scratch glaze them on to give you texture on it, because it kind of works here, but you want really strong white, especially on where all the lines on the model are, to really just bring it out in terms of your whites. In terms of like this front on, it's very clean. Again, I think the whites are just, I want a little bit more depth in terms of like the hair. Like you can see where the shadows are. It's like I would go in with say like a pin wash or something and just really accent them there. Like you've done it here, but I need to see it consistently done and kind of in a controlled manner across like all these shadows. Eyes are very clean. Eyes very well done. I could buy you. I possibly bump the mouth up a little bit in terms of like, you know, just a little bit more redness, kind of the similar pink to this, just a little bit, just makes it pop a little bit more. These lines around the cleavage, I'd want them tidied up a little bit because like again I can see the skin tone seeping through, and then I just want like a little bit more depth on skin tone because it just seems it's quite flat. And I know if that's the anime kind of what you're going for, I really want to see just a little bit of depth, even on the kits, just a little bit of depth. Like the redness down here, you kind of do want to leave a little bit there, just the tiniest little bit. In terms of the skirt now, it's hard to see from the other one, but it's nice. You have the creases, but then it's kind of like you've done it for the skirt, but not up here. So what I want is that level of thought and consistency across the corset, her top, because it feels like you just did it there, but then you're possibly a little bit afraid to do some neutral grays and blacks up here. So I want to see that. And again, kind of, you've done like a base coat wash on the metallic, and it's kind of rinsed off, and I can see it's a little bit glossy. So just a little bit of a tidy up there, and then it looks so much better. The silver lining on the raised texture works really well, but kind of in a similar fashion to everything I've seen across. Like especially this line, you can bump it up with just add a little bit of white to your metallic paint, and then kind of some edge highlights, and it just makes it pop just that little bit more. So here I have another one. Again, like I said, it's just a little bit of cleanliness. Just tidy the lines up just a little bit more. And then, yeah, some deeper creases here. And then just some brushwork with some pure whites just to sell the idea of the fur. And you're golden. Okay, let's move on to the next one. We start with feet again. People need to stop putting feet last. It's going to make me look strange. Okay, wonderful approach to this. A lot of the OSL glowing on the feet. Works really well. I really like the gradient and how the depth we have on the knees. For me, what I want kind of overall is just a little bit more smoothness, and again, the dreaded C where there's a contrast bump on the orange, just a little bit more. Like you have these lines really great, just need to smooth them out ever so slightly in a similar fashion to the overall NMM silver. You have such harsh gaps in terms of your main highlight. Whoops. In terms of the main highlight and the darkest shadows. Really want, like, it's actually, it works incredibly well up on the front moon on her hair, but down here it's so much harsher. I want this smoothness in terms of the bands, like down here. You want this across all these. Even this as well. Like you've done really well to sell the idea of the OSL and the bounds in terms of the lighting, but I want to see that. I want to see this level of silver across here and then across here, because you've got the idea, right? And you know what you're doing, where you are drawing and sketching in your silver NMM first and then going over with your OSL. But before we do that OSL, we want this level. We want this level. And then again, in terms of the hair, you can definitely do a little bit more line work. The skin is gorgeous for what you have done. Like I said, I think it works really well. A few little dirt marks there. A few little dirt marks. Really nice. But yeah, I'd want this just blended just a little bit more. Just a little bit more. Because it's even from this distance, it looks so harsh. And it does sell the effect of the NMM. But if I want, the more I zoom in, the harsher it is. And I just want it smoothed across. Like this line can extend even down into here. Down into where it would be in shadows. And because you kind of done it there, but it doesn't appear here. And this like level of harshness on that versus, even though we can only see a fraction of it there, it works really well. So yeah, this is, again, I really enjoy it. Foot works really well. We just want some glazes, just decrease the harshness of these lines, because you can see the smoothness of it here in certain bits, and then it's a little bit of harshness. So I just consistently want to see a little bit more of the level of the gradients here, which just thin the lines down a little bit. And then again, we'll finish on feet, but this works really well. This is kind of like when you want to go for your OSL, you want that level. And it works on here, but it's the underlying NMM is killing you a little bit with how harsh the lines are. So that's what I'd want changed on this one. Well, yeah, very, very good. Hmm. So it looks like this one's gonna have NMM and OSL. Now, this one's very nice. The consistency and the bounce reflections are really, really, really well done. And the flames are quite nice. Let's have a look from the front. I'm assuming this is a Baldur's Gate. It's either Baldur's Gate or Hades. No, it's Hades, isn't it? This is a good thing that I haven't said anything about the characters because, oh boy. So again, for this, the OSL works really, really well, but it is smoothness is what I got because you have this left leg is very, very nice in terms of you've got the light placement really, really good, and then you basically essentially want just a really deep line of black down here to contrast it because it works quite well. That needs to be smooth just a tiny little bit. The upper half here, again, works really, really well. I like the solidity of the skin. I think the solidity of the skin is quite nice. Nose in here, we just want that blended a little bit. Once again, I zoom in way too much. Because, yeah, it's just, this just needs to be extended up. Like in here, we just want those smoothed a little bit. You want the bridge of the nose just smoothed a tiny little bit. And again, with the hair, this is probably the first example of the hair where you need to glaze these a lot more so it's a little bit subtler. Like you have the right idea in terms of your light placements, but they just need to be smoothed out. You can even go like you can bump it up to close to white. All these edges we want just a little bit more. I want them just highlighted a little bit more. The pattern the pattern is very, very, very well done. Your reds a little bit deeper in the shadows, and a little bit brighter in the highlights, and you're golden. Very well done, gem. You can kind of see, this is what I'm saying, so you can see the hints, the silver there, hints there. We want that on the edges as well. You really want to sell the idea that shiny, shiny armor. And then again here, you can smooth it out. You have a good idea of the placements, but I just want them smoothed just a little bit more. The back flames work really, really well. And again, what you want down here is just like almost a thin line of black, just a single thin glaze of black because it works really well on the arms and it works really well down here. Just a tiny line of black. Tiny line of black, and then again, edge highlight them before you glaze over your OSL, and it'll pop so much more. Similar fashion to the hair back here, it works really well. It's just the blue, just a little glaze. And overall, it looks quite nice, but I'm gonna keep harping on about it. Just a few areas of smoothness, a little less thick on the lines, and really, really good. Yeah, really nicely done. Just smooth things out just ever so slightly. Just some simple glazes just to smooth out because these transitions here are a bit blocky for me, especially if these feathers have such thin lines. Just smooth that out in your aces. Right, on to the next one. So this one's very clean. Just and I do appreciate the fact that this guy has gone absolutely mental on photos. It's greatly appreciated. The more photos, the merrier. Because I will have a lot on this to dissect, which is very, very nice. Um, the separation versus all the others in terms of drawn up to the face is very, very well done. The jacket is a lot more subtle on this one, but I would still like to see these creases On this one, I'd like to see the creases just highlighted a little bit more. It's quite subtle. It's very nice, and your dog meat again. Just it's the tiniest little things on this model that people are kind of missing. While I'm drawn to the face as well, what I want to see more is go a little bit more depth, just a tiny little bit more in the shadows. And tragically, you've overspilt your gloss varnish into the eyelid there. So I would have gone back with paint and or just even a little bit of matte paint and gone back to it just to clean it up. Just it's just oh, it's gonna like that above me. But you can see, and this is what I've been saying to people, is that like you've highlighted this edge quite well in that it shows his nose so much better. But the contrast between the browns up here and kind of that sunny skin tone just work really, really well. Again, not going to hugely judge the base. I haven't judged base on any of them, so it's just not fair to do so. Great angle, like really solid photo. Um, the gun, I see you've done bits and pieces of it. It's going to be in the shadow, so I hope to see a back photo of it. But again, I need a little bit more on this. I'm kind of like it's very nice, but I want these accented a little bit more just to really show it off in terms of even here. See, you've highlighted here quite well, but you can definitely get some of that tone on the stitching and down on here just to really just bring it up. Because yeah, like the tones in this are really, really nice, but I need more highlights. Like again, you can see it goes down to here, and then everyone. I just want a little bit more here. Yeah, just overall, like it's just very well done, and you've really sold yourself on the pants. It's very, very clean. It's the cleanest one I've seen so far, which is great. Really, really, really well done. Let's see what you look like from the front. Yeah, I just, it's just all along the creases. I just want the tiniest before we start doing these patterns. It's just the tiniest bump. Even like you can airbrush it out, you can glaze it. I just want to bump a tiny little bit more. Like this can go just a shade lighter to the similar level of what painting you've used for the the trim of the trim of the waistcoat here. You can just really bring that up, and then possibly a little bit of depth on the face, but it's very, very nice. Just very nice, very clean. Again, there's some really good shots here. But I just want a little more. I want a little more. Um, again, just a dry brush on the not the trim of the hat, but the rope on it. Really, really work. But it's almost like a movie still from this one, which is really, really good. I just again only gripe on this one is just I'd like it a tiny little bit bumped up more, just ever so slightly. Okay. It's Albert. Really nice. There he is. We've done the all gloss varnish over the eye trick. It's very nice. It's very lovely. I like the shading that you've done on everything, the attention to detail of all the tiny little bits. Well, I'm pretty sure it's also on a bit of wood, so I can't judge the bit of wood. Um, I think the striking thing versus this, and this is what I want from this one again, which what I've kind of harped is from everything, is that I just want to smooth a little bit more. The way that we have these individual feathers bit, you probably would have driven yourself insane, but like individuals like this, if you want to go crazy and because it's a competition, I'd want to see like the individual bits of this done a lot more. Like this seems like a block of a harsh line. I want to see it smooth. I want to see it kind of intentional. Like you can see it there. That can extend back up to here. You can even intersperse little bits and pieces of that white up into there, and it'll just bring it out just that tiny little bit more in similar fashion. So long as that's all smooth it out, it'll just really bring it out a little bit more. It's the only thing I have with this because it's quite basic. The pattern on the teddy bear. Oh, that's handmade. So okay, right. Can't even go with that one. Where's the back of them? So like you have elements of it here. The yellow is nice. I just want this extended out a little bit more. If you're gonna, if it's gonna be in here, just blend it up to there. Blend it into these. Blend all of this just a little bit more. Because where's his back? Could have sworn there was one. See, the back seems quite flat. I see there's elements of doing the individual bits and pieces, but I want them kind of going into the middle of the feathers. And it's painstaking, and it's what needs to be done for something like this, but that's what I want to see. Is I want to see the painstaking detail of all of them, because there's nothing to say. What you can do first is treat it as just a flat space and do your gradient top to bottom, so you get the rough overall idea of how he looks. But then you need to go in with the brush with a highlight and start sketch, 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 and then on especially this. It's like I like the tones, but they just need to be blended. But it's very cute. It's very, very well done. And oh, I've just noticed he's killed his poor teddy bear. So gruesome end. But yeah, lovely. And we have ourselves a shadow heart done all in NMM. So let's zoom in a little bit. And very well done, very artistic style of it. The NMM works really, really well. The wood texturing is good. The lining and all. The technique you've employed here, I think, really suits it. I think it works really, really well. Your color on your phone is set to blue, so it looks a little bit strange and colorful. And teeny tiny little rat. So I think my first thing here is it's just again what and like what we had with the one with Hades is it's the level of contrast in terms of the darks, mids, and highlights just needs to be all shrunk down a tiny little bit because it works quite well, but it is a thing of there's just such a gap between your brightest tones and your darkest tones that if we just shrink them down a little bit, we'll have a much nicer piece. In a similar fashion to these edge highlights, this is what works really, really good to get this idea and this tint of them actually shining. But I want to see that brought to like places like here where it's so dark here and then so yellow here. We want to just smooth these down and out. And in a similar fashion to like up here, we want to smooth this out. Like to an extent, I know you're going for with the texturing, but we just want to smooth the transition between highlight and shadow, and it'll just look that bit better. Like up here, it's such a gap here that I'd want to just see this smoothed. I want to see these lines a little bit less chunky and just smooth it out across the board. And then, kind of similar to a lot of what I've been harping on about the hair, is that just a little bit more. Just more contrast, individual lines across it of like close to white to really sell it. Because again, zoom back out here. You kind of have it with the light, your natural light source is doing it, but you want that level of white across here, and then just blend it back. Really nice. It's a shame because I can't really see the mace, but it's nice. It's very well accomplished. I really like the style of it. Just a little bit of smoothness. Clean up the lines a little bit. Races. Okay, and on to the next one. And our first bust. Both done black and white. Okay. Very nice. Clean is my initial reaction to it. Now, I think you've gone metallic gold here on the trim. So what I want, or what I would like to see again, is a secondary color just on the raised bits, just to give it a bit of a shine. Now, the individual circle here doing all that, my absolute hat off to you for taking the time to do it, because that is an absolute effort and a half. So kudos for that. Again, consistency is going to be key. You want much brighter ones across here. The effect works really, really well, but what you want is just bring them all up a little bit, and then you painstakingly are going to have to go in where you want them brighter, so you can put them in sections and put this section much brighter. And then again, you can see kind of the blue, but it's coming from the shadow of it is much darker here. So you want to start with that and then work in doing your pin wash or however you want to do it, because you do kind of have the brightness down here, and then again, depending on the surface that's hitting the light, you can brighten or darken. The red is it's a nice red, but for his face, I think it just lacks a bit of depth. On the lips, you can go like close to bright pink, I think, really, really bright pink, and then these veins and like the bits on your hand can go to really, really, really bright pink. The veins and stuff again as well, and then you can kind of see it that you've got your shadow work there. You can really bring that down into other spots as well, like in and around the horns where the hair meets it. You can just bring them really, really down. You can bring that purple down into here on this side of the hand. Because again, it's mostly the natural lighting of the camera is doing this for you, but this is where you want to extend that down, all down into here. The white on the frill on the neck, I would have masked that off and airbrushed it. It's a little inconsistent for me. And again, the hair, I want just a little bit more depth where it's shown. And the horns can be highlighted a little bit more. But it's very nice. Again, hats off to you for doing all these individual rings. It's probably where you lost your sanity, and I don't blame you. But with how level that level of white should probably go across the entire section of these rings. Yeah, very nicely done. I'm not going to bother viewing it in the white background because it's going to blow out a lot of the model. So yeah, and then final one, and Stella from Stella Blade? Question mark. Okay. Let's check that boundary of the OSL. So, interesting use here. It's nice. I see you've done a lot of glazing, especially in around here, which is good because if I zoom out, affect the soul quite well. But you can definitely bump the contrast here. The line for the orange, you're going to want to extend that just up here. It looks a little strange, it's getting cut off and then suddenly it's back here. So I would just straight down extend it here. And in a similar fashion, you can just um make it a little subtle on the face, because you'll never have just a harsh line that small for um your division between your skin tone and your OSL glow. So you can just smooth that out. Just smooth it out with a little bit of a mixture of your OSL color and um your skin tone. It just looks a little bit better. Again, the ringing here, you gotta clean it. You gotta clean it. We want that a little bit better. And there's some layer lines there. So we want that all clean. I know this is a difficult model to do it on, but they're gonna crucify it. A hand on pattern, very nice. And then from this angle, yeah, I can see what you're going for with the hair. And then I just want it, just extreme orange in terms of the stranding and the bracing. And then these layer lines gotta go. They gotta go. Gotta go. And then, yeah, so this is where I'm kind of confused in that. So she's supposed to be lit from the back. Okay, so kind of take back what I was saying about previously. But if you want a harsh and extreme, so you have a harsh and extreme line here, you want a harsh and extreme shadow here from her arm. It's subtly falling off down to there, because you can see this is like the level of it, and that is just the natural photograph. You want that level across the board, across kind of down here, depending on how extreme you want to go. And then on the face, you just won't have that black line. I can see, yeah, you've done an effort to kind of airbrush it in, but what I would do is I'd go in with my brush and with a light orange, just start glazing in more tones here. Nice use of the black lining. Again, the green would extend down here, and then you just glaze some orange over. And then there's just a lot of this is just like edge highlighting a lot more. And then it's the, once again, cleanliness bump is going to crucify it, because there's even there a little bit of ringing watermarking. You gotta smooth, because it's nice and smooth on this side, but then little silly mistakes, little wash rings, gonna kill you. Gonna absolutely kill you. Because it looks quite nice. Like you nice smooth gradients. I just want to see the consistency across the board. And then this arm is quite pale, but her face isn't that pale. So I want more of these warmer tones on this side of the arm. And then, yeah, I can see kind of, again, it's layer lining, and it's a little bit of your ink that's probably splotched a little bit. So just a little bit of tidying up here, and we'd have another absolute banger put out. And then, yeah, I can see you kind of basically some dry brushing there, but go in with your brush, just go out sections, and then just sketch them in, and it'll make your hair look so much better. But okay, it seems like that's it. Hopefully you got an insight to the way that I think about these things, and what I want and what I look for in terms of like competition pieces. I had fun. This is going to be difficult now, deciding on my top three, but yeah, thanks for watching. Hopefully this serves good for those who entered to get a little bit of feedback, and I'll catch you soon.